So moving on to our next presentation, which will be given to us by Anna Eyler. And the name of this presentation is Data Analysis on Sexuality Training, a Survey of Counselors. Anna is a senior at Hood College, majoring in math with a minor in chemistry. And she will talk about her use of her mathematical and analytical skills as related to a social science study that she was involved in. So with that, I give you Anna Eyler.
Thank you, Lisa. Is everyone able to view my screen? I just want to make sure it was uploaded correctly.
Yes, we can see it.
Wonderful, thank you. So like Lisa said, I will be presenting on my data analysis on sexuality training, a survey of counselors. So just to give everyone a little bit of background on what my research was. So this all started with an independent study that I'm currently doing with Dr. Shoemaker in the Psychology and Counseling Department. So I was brought on as a statistician, but the research that's currently going on, so the American Counseling Association is an accreditation board in the psychology and counseling field. And within the ACA, they have 18 divisions of practice areas, and currently none of which are specific to human sexuality. So the Association for Counseling, Sexology, and Wellness is an organizational affiliate of the ACA with a goal of supporting counselors in the field to provide resources and increase competency for counselors in the field. So the goal of this study was to survey counselors and to get a self-efficacy of addressing sexuality topics for current counselors in the field. And all of the data for this research was collected in 2020, and it was done via anonymous survey. So looking here just to get a bit of a feel for what the data actually looked like. So there were a total of 172 respondents after cleaning out the data, just to make sure that every response had a full answering of every question. And some of the questions were educational background, so how long they've had their license, as seen below, and then 10 Likert scale questions on comfortability and how well a counselor feels on addressing a certain topic. So looking at this bar chart on the left of the screen, you see that the majority of respondents have had their license for less than 5 years. So this is their counseling license in their appropriate field. Sorry. So we asked the respondents about their background and their education on within their counseling program. So looking at the left pie chart, we see that 18% of respondents had a course that was required in their counseling program on human sexuality. And then on the right, we see that 23.3% of all respondents took an elective course on human sexuality. So it wasn't required, but it was offered and they took it. So just seeing here, we can see that there isn't a large majority of people that have had a course dedicated to human sexuality. So my goal was to sort through the data and see just how people are responding and how that correlates to their educational backgrounds and their comfortability within the human sexuality and how comfortable they feel on actually counseling within human sexuality topics. So we see here, especially one of the biggest findings that I've had so far, and this is like a current independent study. So looking at the average score by the sexuality of counseling definition. So respondents were asked if they had a strong definition of human sexuality and if they could provide that definition. So there was a significant amount of people that either said they were not sure if they had a definition or did not have a strong definition of human sexuality. And we see here, even just by looking at the mean, so these scores are the summation of all of the 10 Likert scale questions that were on a scale of 1 to 5. So we see here that respondents did not feel as comfortable with anything else throughout the survey if they did not have that strong definition. So like I said before, less than 50% had any type of course on human sexuality, which with that being such a current topic these days, that was a little bit alarming just for me as someone outside of the field. And even for those people that did have any component of a human sexuality courses, the responses were still close to what the average was for the entire set of data, meaning that they didn't feel overall more confident as compared to those that did not have a course in human sexuality. So one thing that could be leading to that is just that something like a program is very new with how they're educating on human sexuality. So maybe that material didn't stick, or just the way that it was being taught wasn't covered as much as students may have needed. We see that only 40% of respondents had a strong definition of human sexuality. And when people did report that they had a strong definition, they scored over one factor higher than people that did not have a strong definition or were unsure about a definition of human sexuality. So this really means that on a comfortability scale where 1 is I don't feel comfortable at all and 5 is I'm completely confident on that topic. And so people that did not have a strong definition were on average reporting 3s, which is I'm kind of in the middle. I'm not confident, but I'm not discouraged. Whereas people that did have a strong definition, or at least they reported a strong definition of human sexuality, were reporting more 4s and consistently 4s or 5s. So there was a significant upward trend in that sense. We also see that within the people that did not have a required or elective course in human sexuality, so no courses taken specific on human sexuality, there wasn't lower overall just scoring difference. So we see at the very bottom here that we even comparing just the no strong definition versus having a strong definition, there is that overall 1 point difference on those Likert scale questions. In the future, so finishing out my independent study, I look to investigate more of these correlations and just seeing what does make a difference and which questions align more. So I have found some that are more important, such as having that definition of human sexuality, but some of the questions aren't really correlating. So I want to try and find more of those to see how that can affect other responses. I'm also looking to convert current graphs into tables. So just making everything more standardized and viewable via table, which also goes hand in hand with preparing all of the data for publication up to standards. I'm also looking into applying the application of data findings. So we want to take this data, but we also want to do something with it. So really making the education that counselors are receiving, both during their counseling program and their continuing education, we want to make sure that's effective. So in the work that I just showed, even though some people did have a required or elective course, they weren't really responding differently to those that didn't. So we not only want to provide, make sure the education is provided, but make sure it's provided effectively so that counselors feel prepared and have the right tools for doing their work in a day-to-day setting. I would like to acknowledge my advisor, Dr. Shoemaker. So she was the one that brought me onto this research team. She provided me a wonderful learning opportunity as a student. So taking my mathematics classroom skills and applying them into a research setting. So without her, this learning opportunity would not have been possible. And I would also like to thank the Spire Symposium organizers for hosting this event.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Anna. Do we have any questions? Checking my Q&A and my chat here. I'm curious to know, as somebody who was brought into the research team, it sounded like not as the hypotheses and study was initially being conceptualized. What was that experience like for you? And what would you say the value of maybe even being part of the process in its entirety might have been?
Definitely. So I thought it was a wonderful opportunity, just even now, to figure out and to investigate how different fields throughout a liberal arts education can differ. So even just comparing what I've learned in the classroom in my math courses and applying that into a different field. So in my math classes, usually graphs are more preferred, but seeing and going through and reading other publications within the psychology and counseling fields, I've seen that tables are more frequently used to provide data and insight. So really just learning how to accommodate data to an industry or an academic standard has been very helpful in applying my education.
Well, that's great. That's great. So some comments here for you. Miriam says, really informative presentation, Anna. Jessie says, amazing job, Anna. And thank you so much for participating today. I don't